Hey, go see the big back.
She said she likes in church. She wanted
The Earnest Blockhead.
I thought Simon and Peter were two different people.
Simon, a strong and rugged fisherman, was not known for his intellect. He was neither a scholar nor a philosopher. However, he was extremely passionate about being the very best at whatever he set his mind to. And people were often quite impressed with his spirit and determination, which naturally inspired him all the more. Although occasionally Simon's tenacity would get him in over his head. One cold morning, having just returned from the worst day of fishing in his entire career, he was approached by a stranger by the name of Jesus, who asked Simon if he would take him out to sea for a big catch. Simon agreed to Jesus' request, though he couldn't explain why. He knew it would be a fruitless endeavour, as he'd been out to sea that entire night and caught approximately 0 fish.
See? I told you. Oh.
In the light of this stunning miracle, Simon struggled with how best to react, but finally settled on self-deprecation.
Go away from me. I am a terrible, awful, wretched, no good, and ugly sinner.
Despite Simon's cited issues, Jesus insisted that he become one of his disciples. At this, Simon immediately committed himself to being the greatest disciple in the history of the universe. Being a disciple of Jesus proved far more challenging than Simon initially anticipated. When Jesus healed Simon's ailing mother-in-law, Simon was naturally overjoyed and felt compelled to share the miraculous news to anyone with a pulse.
Did you see what he just did? My mother-in-law is healed. Come and see the miracle performed by Jesus of Nazareth and believe. Believe! Huh? Oh, Gesundheit. Come and see the miracle worker. You too can be healed of all afflictions. Healer extraordinaire. Over here. Come and see Jesus and hey. Jesus?
Though he wasn't sure why, it was clear that Simon had failed to impress Jesus.
Really?
One night, Jesus sent his disciples ahead of him in a boat to cross the Sea of Galilee. Suddenly, a figure appeared that seemed to be walking on the surface of the water. When it became apparent that it was Jesus, Simon immediately saw an opportunity to prove himself.
Lord, is that you? Because if it is you, tell me to walk out to you and I will. Seriously, I will totally do it.
Jesus told him to come forth.
That'd be cool.
The other disciples were truly impressed. Whoa. Unfortunately, so was Simon. Not long after this, Simon had yet another opportunity to make up for his prior missteps, when Jesus abruptly asked, "Who am I?"
are the Christ.
And this time Jesus was elated and announced that Simon would be the rock upon which Jesus built his church, and that from then on Simon's name would be Simon Peter, or Peter for short. Peter thought to himself, I must be Jesus' favourite disciple. Roughly 45 seconds later, Jesus told his disciples that he was going back to Jerusalem, where he would endure great suffering. The disciples were all stunned by this news, with the exception of Simon Peter, the rock.
Are you nuts? That is not going to happen.
It became apparent that Peter had perhaps overstepped his bounds when Jesus then rebuked him and called him Satan. Peter thought to himself, I must be Jesus' least favourite disciple.
Jairus, take that to heart.
In Jerusalem, the disciples became more and more disheartened as Jesus elaborated on the details of his arrest and execution. Peter, up to this point, had remained relatively quiet for fear that he'd once again put his foot in his mouth. However, when Jesus announced that they would all abandon him, he could not contain himself any longer.
I will never abandon you, even if I'm the only one left.
Jesus assured Peter that on that very night, before the rooster crows, he would deny Jesus 3 times. It was apparent that Jesus was testing his loyalty, which Peter viewed as wholly unnecessary, if not offensive.
I would die before I deny you.
However, later that night, after Jesus was arrested, Hey, weren't you with Jesus of Galilee?
Me? What? No.
Hey! He was with Jesus of Nazareth!
I don't... Who are you talking about? I don't know who that is either.
Your accent gives me away. You're his disciple.
Oh, would you give it a rest? I don't know this Jesus. Get it? Never have, never will. Ew.
After Jesus' death, Peter lost all confidence in himself. He had completely failed as a disciple. He decided to take his mind off things by returning to the one thing he had been successful at: fishing. But much to his dismay, this also proved to be an utter failure. But then, an oddly familiar voice called out from the shore, encouraging them to lower their nets on the other side of the boat.
It's the Lord. Huh? Ha!
Peter didn't know what to say to Jesus, and so he sat in silent embarrassment. Then suddenly Jesus turned, asking Peter not once, not twice, but 3 times if he loved him.
You know I love you. Of course I love you. I love you, okay?
Jesus replied, "Feed my sheep." Peter was initially too hurt by Jesus' questioning of his love to comprehend what he was being called to do. But as time passed, Peter began to see that if he truly loved and cared for Jesus, he would share that love and care with all those around him.
Rise up and walk.
It wasn't about impressing anyone, it was about expressing God's love. This realization would inform Peter's words and deeds throughout the rest of his life, as he passionately spread the message of Jesus all across the land, becoming one of the founding fathers of the Christian church.